Welcome to Equity in Every Drop, a podcast from Waterkeeper Alliance. In this upcoming series, we are discussing factory farms and their negative impacts on water quality in communities throughout the United States. So, whether you're a seasoned environmental advocate or just dipping your toes into these issues, we hope you will join us as we amplify our mission to protect everyone's right to clean water. Let's jump right in. My guest today is Reverend Jimmy Melvin. Reverend Melvin is the senior pastor of Mount Zion Church in Magnolia, North Carolina. In Reverend Melvin's 40-year pastoral ministry, he has served churches in Sampson, Pender, and Bladen counties. He recently began working with Waterkeeper Alliance to raise awareness about the water pollution problems affecting North Carolina's communities. Reverend Melvin, thank you so much for being here today.
I'm happy to be here today. Thank you for the opportunity to be engaged with this at this level this year.
Yeah, well, we're very excited to have you. And we've met here through the podcast, but working here at Waterkeeper Alliance, I've been very aware of your work and your contributions to this movement. And we're all very excited to have you on the podcast today. You know, we were talking before we started recording, and, earlier in this series, we've been talking a lot about concentrated animal feeding operations, or CAFOs, or factory farms. If you don't work in this industry, that's probably the more layman term for it. And a lot of our guests have come to us from the policy side and have come to us from the health impact side and even some water quality management sides. But what I'm interested, that's not really your background. And I think that's really valuable and an important perspective. So tell me a little bit about yourself and if you can, why you decided to get involved with environmental issues.
I graduated from high school, went to college a year, then we were employed by the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company for 30 years and retired. In the meantime, half of that years, I was maybe 10 to 15 years, I was a bivocational pastor. And then from that point, at age of 49, I became where I was a community person and had opportunity to work with communities. And that was in Bladen County. And they mentored me in giving me opportunity to participate and be a part of their environmental problems and communicating with the representatives, with the commissioners. I had an awesome opportunity to exercise and just to get to know how things work and get a better understanding of government and being engaged and the necessity of having everybody engaged and coming to solutions and solving problems. From that point, any opportunity with the problem solving and things, I volunteered because of the opportunity to learn and expand. And so that began a process of that problem solving has been, I think, the most valuable thing in being able to engage people and respect what they have to offer and keep what's important, the cause in front of us. And it was an awesome journey of just seeing how the wealth of gifting and knowledge that people had and the different perspectives from the strength and what their position was. It was amazing. So this was a welcome challenge to employ this on a different level. So this is where I'm at today, and this has got me in front of you. But that was some preparation that I was able to, because I guess my gift of desire, it was an opportunity to learn and continue to reinvent myself and develop. So.
I mean, it's certainly a reinvention, and there's certainly a problem here, right? So let's talk a little bit take us a little bit off the script here a little bit, but we'll get to everything, because this notion of problem solving and your interest or your passion and your willingness and just it sounds like I can just kind of sense your energy to go at these problems. Tell me about the problems that these hog farms are causing for communities near where you live.
Well, the very first thing in being introduced to the hog farms was the odor.
Right, the smell of money.
We were accustomed to, in the rural setting, the culture says when the weathers begin to set to rain, you could detect it by the scent of a small hog farm. Smell the hog pen, we're going to get some rain. Well, that was normal to smell it. But when industry came in and the large hog farms, then that was not just when it rained, but the odor became consistent. When you went out, you smelled it. But at first, it was individual farmers may have had a commercial hog farm that had maybe 100 hogs in it that him and his son operated. But then when everything shifted and the commercialization came,
Right.
and those 100 hog became 1,000 hogs or 1,000,000 hogs, then I really feel that hindsight is always 2020. That EPA standards for that did not match the demand of the management, and we got behind the curve. And in that, we lost ground. We're now trying to recover. We're trying to recover that. So there's some sense on the citizens' part that we just did not be proactive, and we could debate for the rest of our lives, but we have a cause at hand, and so the invitation is to be engaged along with the EPA, with the government, our local. So it is. We all still like bacon. I ate some this morning. I'm not mad with the hog, and if somebody's having a barbecue the weekend, it's the barbecue. So I always share with it. I'm not mad with the barbecue, but
Sure.
let's the issue in hand, and that is a quality of life, and we have to be responsible for quality of life for everybody.
Right. And that data point that even as you just said, you said, well, it used to smell it, with certain weather, and now you smell it all the time. Like that's a real impact. And that's, I want to talk a little bit about, again, we're going to get to this question later, but it's just kind of on my mind now. What does that impact have on a community that, I mean, I can guess, but that it's not great, but that an industry and that government is allowing for something which is basically a nuisance, not even getting into all the health impacts and the water impacts and everything else, but just that immediate visceral smell. He said, okay, your community can have this. We're okay with this, with foisting this on you. How does that impact people in your neighborhood, in your counties, in your towns?
There was a common bond, but that began to bring friction on that, began to bring friction, the commercialization of it. And the end, what was gained began to be superior over being heard. And that began to weigh on our rural culture and our togetherness and opportunity. So it caught us at a point that we weren't prepared to collaborate, keep what's important,
Right.
along with the progress that was being made. Our nation became more industrial. Our rural areas now begin to be a great source. We eliminated the tobacco for a period of time, and so that began to be pushed forward to the thing. And with that became commercialized meals and things that helped assist that. So it became a leading economical arm, but that did not address the problem.
Right.
So it was made it easier to divide it and conquer. And so, the financial side of it spoke more relevant to addressing a problem and to those that were in power to make decisions than just the average taxpayer. So that was what was exciting to me, to have the opportunity to be engaged has always been there, but
Mm-hmm.
that force it sort of programmed people, and I don't matter.
Yeah, you would feel like that if your community was overrun with this industry that was ramping up suddenly and impacting you every day, regardless of the weather, as you said earlier. And what's so interesting to me too is you have such a considerate and balanced view of the situation, because you're not just here saying like, oh, these things are a scourge, we got to get rid of them. And you're like, hey, I ate bacon this morning, and would gladly attend a barbecue, and these people need jobs too, right? I mean, people need to work, and that's not a trap or a conundrum or whatever, but it's a delicate situation. And what good is, it's a very nuanced and considerate take, and it's easy to lose sight of that. This is people's livelihoods, not just their drinking water and their air. I mean, it's ideally we could find some kind of balance where this works for everyone. Yeah, you grew up on a farm?
Yes, I grew up on a farm. My father had about 35 or 40 acres. We grew up with farm. We raised hogs, and he was a logging contractor. That's what gave me a love for because we were swamp log. We was around creeks, and so we had opportunity to visit places in the swamps and just
Mm.
see the natural beauty of it.
How have you seen that change in the last 10 or 15 years, or has it changed recently?
It's really affected the ecosystem. In our eastern North Carolina, there's no hills. We have
Mm.
just a few high slopes, but our streams and our rivers are this is a pastime. I'm 45. I'm 60 by 63 or 4 miles from the coast in Wilmington. Some people on our major black river that runs in Cape Fear, some people have their boat. They make the commute on the weekend. They want to go out. They have a little port there at their house off the river, and a group of them just ride down to Wilmington. I mean, and the fishing. But now our smaller streams, our tributary rivers, where we used to cut hardwood timber, thin it out, that now is because of the pollution and the spinoff over phosphate and nitrogen. We first thought it was the beavers, because there was normally the beavers. But now you see broad swamps with no trees.
Yeah.
Now that's not there anymore. That's not the same.
We think about the effects on human health and on wildlife, and I had never thought about it. Of course, it would impact trees and fauna and things like that because it's all connected. And I want to come back to your work as a minister, and because like I said in the beginning, like it's so interesting to me to talk to you for a number of reasons, but for this series and this issue in particular, we talk to people who are public health experts and professors and lawyers and waterkeepers and this, that, and the other thing. But tell me about the correlation between being a minister and then being an environmental steward. I think I can guess what you're going to say and how these two are connected. But I'm very interested to hear from you how these two are connected and how are they connected, how you went from one to the other.
Yeah, they're connected because, we've been entrusted to be good stewards. And we are actually our brother's keeper. There's got to be a common cause, the thread that holds us all together, regardless race, creed, or color. And those two things are water and air. So in that, you to keep focus on the humanity issue. My father, who was, you talking about being engaged, and for the greater good of humanity and our community. And he worked across the lines and for the greater good, and instilled that in us, that you don't let your differences get between being community. And we have a right to our positions, but we hold accountable each other for the greater good of everybody. And that it's not worked well in places, but it's been a stable to me. And in this situation, we now don't waste the time blaming who did what. We all watched it. We all were here, voting citizens. We all are a part of it. We watched it happen.
And I just want to go back to something else, just to commend you on the way that you're talking about this issue. There's such a difference. There's such a clarity when I listen to you speak between, like, you're not pointing blame at anybody. You're just looking to solve the problem. And I think that's the thing that I keep coming back to when I hear you speak, is that this is not about, well, you did this wrong and you're eating too much bacon. And this is not like a finger pointing exercise. This is a problem solving exercise for you. And I think that really comes through. And I think that's very valuable, because it is very easy when we hear about this issue or any issue to demonize and to not get the other person's perspectives and to not take in the full picture and say, no, I know I'm right and I know they're wrong. That's very easy. In any venue of my life, I could see that being very appealing, but it's not really going to get us anywhere towards the solution. This seems to be very deliberate on your behalf, or is this, it's just the way you are. It seems to be an effective way to go about dealing with this issue and probably every issue.
And I've had opportunity. Tom has brought college students and professors, and one of the guys, he was working with Tom and he was preparing to retire. I asked him, how does this, what you see here, and they'd already had the tour, where you were raised at, in the culture we're in, how does it compare with this? Can you relate to this? Is this similar? And there might be one that the demographics might have been the same, but none could. They said it's nothing like they ever imagined. And then they'd ask them, they would finally get comfortable, would get engaged, and they said, how do people live like this? But it had an opportunity to, keep the cause before them. and the seriousness of it and relay what the battle is being engaged in finding common ground that's here now, deal with the here and now.
So I just want to say on what you had just said about working with something that you're to make a difference, to have that passion. On the flip side of it, I don't know. I feel like I've worked in this space for a few years, and I've worked outside of this space in things that I'm not passionate about. And while it does take more energy and more determination to work in things that are important, it's more fulfilling too, and I know this is sort of an aside, but as daunting and as hard as this work can be, I still think it's better than working at something that you don't care about. So it's a gift in a lot of ways. So I think that we've covered a lot here, and I want to just talk to you a little bit more about, we've talked about the way the landscape has changed and the way that the industry has changed and how this has impacted the community and your role in this and your journey to this. And, we've said a few times that, my takeaway anyway, is that a lot of the things that I keep hearing are problem solving. So with that in mind, what can the community do about this problem? How can this problem be solved, in your opinion?
They'll have to organize. Our community has organized and we're engaged. We basically had someone came to do a presentation last night from one of the agencies, but we're trying to educate, trying to make sure we understand, because now our voice has to be heard by our governmental leaders who are elected by the people for the people. So we need to be intelligent. We need to be purposeful and continue to be consistent with that, with information. And so we're in the information age. We have access to so much more than we did. There's so much more research. And so we have an opportunity to have testings, to have a water tested, to studies on the potential of clean water, being proactive, people visiting the Capitol, visiting we've had more people, our senators and representatives have open door policies. So our rural people get together and they drive up and they go visit them. So we are birthing a more informed culture where if something's like this with the potential to explode the way it is, it would be difficult to do that without bringing scientific information, showing that you took this in mind, you took that in mind, you took this in mind. Because in just this past year, a group of young people, young parents, all children, warded off a environmental issue that a company was going to move in with and had the potential to do the same thing. And they based it on research. They took the present research that was now available, and those senators and representatives put that company to stepping. And they called themselves a young group. And the age limit, they were just getting kids into elementary school. But they're concerned because of what we've done, exposing the environmental issues. They thought and processed in a different way, even though at the present time, it didn't affect them. But the foresight they had, I thought that was wonderful. But it did it because the research that was available, it couldn't be denied, and being proactive. So I see so many great things that's coming out of this.
Yeah, for sure. And so I guess maybe we already asked this question, but I want to get your point of view on this. How do you see this problem being solved? I mean, what would you like to see if you could solve it? If you could, I say this all the time and it's so silly. If you could wave a magic wand, what is this balance? How would you like to see your community interact with this industry? Do you want to see them interact at all? Like, what's the right way forward?
I think we have a great opportunity to completely changing the culture with our industry and our government in the greater good of everybody. Clean water solves the major problem. That solves the major problem. The air management, we have the capability and the technology that the emphasis put there that can be managed. But here again, we waste a lot of time bringing that to the forefront and discovering and presenting information, bringing solutions. And I had an older minister used to always say in our meetings, you can't solve the problem if you're a part of the problem. And so if if being ignorant or not being informed, then you can't solve the problem if you're a part of it. It's not knowing. And in life, you and I, everybody, as we here at the point where we are now, the things where we kept crashed, messed up, what we call a fear and human error. And that is not knowing what you need to know before you need to know it. And so we have a great opportunity with exposure. And what I see, just what I heard in our community meeting last night as they addressed the environmental person that came in from 3 years ago, which is normally me speaking or the president speaking. They addressed the commissioners. One of the little quiet ladies made an intelligent presentation to the commissioners. Another guy, I was unable to go. They made a beautiful, intelligent presentation, knowledgeable, and reminded them we're here because we're concerned and we want to be a part of the solution. And, we believe you're just as interested as we are in solving this problem. I thought that was amazing for them to challenge them in that way. But now, 2 years ago, they had to start getting police in there because it was getting rough. I mean, people were expressing, they would get mad. I mean, it would get ugly. But now people have gotten so much, they can present it so intelligent that it really puts pressure on the leadership because they are speaking intelligent, they're telling facts, they're speaking from research. So we're birthing an intelligence that's going to demand different leadership with the research that's being made, that God is going to provide someone with the insight and the willingness that our government will partner with them, that we can continue to create a better union, a better nation, or whatever.
It's like, hey, the science is unrefutable.
Yeah.
It's irrefutable, and it is speaking to all of us in a lot of ways, and we need to listen and we need to do something about it and solve this problem.
And one of the things, as I said, 28 years I was in the county where I had opportunity to be engaged and be involved and help solve problems, lead across the denominational lines. And when I left that year, I moved this way. And so I embraced the opportunity here, not knowing that that's what I was going to run into, well that was contaminated. And we had to spend money, go down 225 feet to get our well straightened out. And they had been having a water test. But it was a complete new culture that I had opportunity to introduce my people to. We've had people come in and do movies in the church and interview, and they say, well, can we speak to the people? I said, I'm telling you, after this morning, I don't know, they may run home. Amazingly, 18 people stayed, and they put that microphone on the long arm, put the chairs in a horseshoe shape in the cafeteria, and they filled those chairs up, and they shared stuff that brought tears to my eyes.
Yeah, I'm sure. It is this issue that is beyond the science and the law of it. It is impacting real people's lives and real people's communities. And talking about the word appreciation, I mean, I greatly appreciate you being here and sharing your insights and perspective on that.
One thing that I would say is I'm appreciative to the entities that are taking the opportunity to use whatever venue they have to be in collaboration, and the passion. I've met people that flew in from France. I did interviews with people from all over. But just that was so encouraging, and I've done more research on what other countries are doing about environment. I had a granddaughter that she's graduated from NYU in New York in movies and stuff, and she went to Prague, and I wanted her to make sure she tell me about what she learned about. And she had the opportunity to travel, and she said, "Oh my God, Dad!" said they're so much more conscious in the environment than we are, and so that was reinforcing. So it is a humanity issue, and I believe that God is favoring our efforts, and that there's purpose in what we're doing.
Amen to that. And I think you really touch on another really great point. And what it reminds me of a sort of this paradigm is that I think with a lot of issues, and it can be environmental, it can be political, there's loads of these problems, that I think the biggest problem is not a lack of empathy or a lack of caring. It's people don't know. They don't know that the bacon on their table is causing this problems. They don't know that their car is polluting. So, you being here today and speaking with us and the work that the Waterkeepers do out there and all these great advocates and Jamie Berger, the filmmaker, and everybody else who's working on this issue, raising that awareness is going to, I hope, activate people's goodness and empathy and caring and
Yes.
how change will be made. But it can't happen if people don't know what the problem is. And that, that this is one of the first steps in that.
And they have spent their wheels for years knowing what they smell, but didn't have the process. And one of the older doctors always would I hear him say, the government will not listen. Research is what they listen to. He would say that, and boy, they would beat him down. Can't you smell it? I remember that so often he would say that. And as the research began to take place with the water and the environment with the hogs in the rural area, the water testing gave them, put legs under them, put feet under them. After all the noise, as if they were sitting in a wheelchair and watching the news. But they have gained and made awesome, and it's all tied together because it's environmental. And so that being engaged, seeing that be engaged and the approach together is really demanding the attention of the leadership of our state, and it's really demanding that will be something that every person elected will have to get accustomed to and deal with. It's not going away. People are now have the understanding and know how to present it, and the research is becoming more and more available, and so it will be a part of the culture. It's actually changing the culture.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Reverend Melvin, thank you so much for being here today. It was great to speak with you again. And I know that our listeners, wherever they are in the world, from North Carolina to Prague, are thanking you as well.
God bless you. Thank you for the opportunity to share, be a part of it.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Waterkeeper Alliance podcast, Equity in Every Drop. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform and visit waterkeeper.org to learn how you can get involved and help support our mission to make waterways cleaner, healthier, and accessible to all. Every drop counts. Until next time, I'm Thomas Hynes. Thanks for listening.